Hey, new patient group and Right Chat Nation. Welcome inside the broadcast booth. Brian right here, and welcome into Season 5, Episode number 9, Episode 80 overall. Keep creeping along here to that Episode 100, which I've said in a few podcasts ago. I'm looking forward to Episode 100 because I have a special one out there to all the devoted listeners, new patient group and Right Chat clients. I have a special one that's really going to be a tribute to all of you, and I'm really looking forward to delivering that episode. So we're still a couple seasons away from getting there, but we're creeping very close to it. It's definitely on my mind. But hope everyone is doing great out there. Just getting back. Wonderful event. Went to the Synergy Symposium over in Miami, was the keynote there. We delivered the 7 steps to achieving prosperity. Wonderful feedback there. Coming back from Vail. So we're in Vail speaking for Shine. Left Vail, went over to Miami for that Synergy event. And great time. Great time meeting a lot of the reps out there. I love meeting the reps. Reps listening. I mean, you're on the ground floor. You do so much for the practices. I know it's frustrating sometimes because a lot of the things that you talk to the practices about, you just can't get them to implement it. And I feel your frustration there. It was great meeting a lot of the new reps. A lot of the podcast followers, just some of our fans out there came up at the Synergy event. Got to meet a lot of you. That was awesome. Thanks to all the Synergy people. You know, the behind-the-scenes people when you speak, this is like with a lot of things in life. You know, the movies, you see the actors, but you don't see all the people that did the behind-the-scenes things that actually made it reality. You know, these events, the technical people, you know, to making sure the speakers work right and your videos play out the speakers, you know, properly. And they handle all the BS behind the scenes that at least somebody like me would have no clue how to handle. And they really make everything flow. So shout out to all of you. I always like spending time with you at those events and saying thank you and just hanging out with you. I always find a lot of value in that. So appreciate that. Hey, if you're watching over on our YouTube station, hey there, everybody. Going to be piggybacking off of, you know, we've been in a theme when we talked about the number one success trait of billionaires, and we talked about that theme. We talked about some of the worst marketing mistakes you can make in a down economy, and we have this kind of looking outside your industry for help theme going on. I'm going to finish that today with talking about one of the biggest hiring mistakes that you're making. Inevitably, it's really sabotaging you from finding better, more high-level talent. And we're going to be tying that into also how billionaires look whenever they're going to hire for their organizations, one of the very common traits they have. And what I see with the new patient group clients, the ones that are consistently the most successful year in and year out while spending little to nothing on advertising and just the overall consistency, there's a very routine hiring pattern, a very normal hiring pattern that they have in common that I'm going to talk about today that is very common to the theme we've been on, like I said, with the last 2 podcasts. And I think you're going to get a lot out of it. Again, this is going to be dedicated to shifting that mindset away from how your industry has done it for so long. I think you're going to like it a lot. It's definitely going to help you find higher level talent to help you move the needle forward in this new economy. When that new economy, you hear that word, if you're new and this is the first time you've listened to this podcast, what that means in the new economy is a lot of things, but simply put for you, it means you're a commodity in a competitive environment unlike ever before. And when that happens, you must change your mindset inside your doors and do everything differently than has been done in the past. All right, looking forward to a great one. Before we get started, let's fire up the music.
A practice on almost every corner, and the modern-day consumer viewing you as a commodity. So why is it the best time in history to own a practice? The answers are all right here. Welcome to Season 5 of the New Patient Group Audio Experience, a business, marketing, and life coaching podcast dedicated to helping doctors dominate the new economy. And now your host, he's the founder and CEO of New Patient Group, managing partner of Right Chat, and a trusted motivational speaker for the finest companies in the world, Brian Wright.
Hey everybody, welcome in. Had some listeners at the Synergy event come up to me and ask me that, or told me that we need to be more vocal about some of the things we have as a company because they were podcast listeners and just didn't really know. And I joked with them, like, well, I announce these things in a podcast, but you don't want to come across as, you know, Mr. Salesy back here. So, you know, these podcasts are intended to change your mindset, give you a lot of tidbits that can help your practice. They're not intended to sit here and give you a sales pitch. But at the same time, if you don't know we have certain things, then, you may otherwise would have bought from us when otherwise you may not. So one of the things I wanted to announce, because this is something that's become very popular, and normally, and when I announced it at the Synergy event, we had a ton of people go and immediately sign up, is our Prime on-demand membership. So what we used to do is we used to offer a bunch of free courses. You could put in your information, you could get some free stuff. And I noticed a trend. There's a couple things that would happen with that. Is one, it's free, so there's no value. There's no sense of urgency to implement anything you're actually learning from the videos because it's free. It's like you're not paying anything. And the other one, though, is because it was free, we couldn't give you enough content. I mean, the content was good and it would allow you to test it. But really, long story short, now that we're charging, it's $100 and some dollars a month. I mean, it's a joke. The amount of value you get for what you're investing in monthly far supersedes your investment. And we were able to give you more because we're charging a little bit for it now. And I wanted to let everybody know that it's there, okay? If you just go to, we used to have a free tab on our menu, so it was pretty clear to everybody, oh, free, let me click it. You get to see all the free stuff. We don't have that anymore. Now you have to go underneath the on-demand tab, and there's 3 different on-demand memberships that you can get with our company. And the Prime one is that entry level. It allows you to test still some really high-level content, but it allows you to test it out. If you just want some tidbits of our content, start to learn. Maybe you're not ready to dive all in. So just make sure and go and check that out. And then also we have an upcoming financial presentation sales boot camp. Use podcast 20 on our website. If you go to live, then you'll get to a page that has this. If you enter podcast 20 when you're checking out, that code will get you a 20% discount off of the financial presentation boot camp, and that's going to be some high level. You can look at the dates, go check it out for yourself on the website. It's going to be some very high level sales fundamentals and how to present money, how to handle objections, a lot of the psychology that goes into presenting money to put you in a better place of success. And that's a series of 3 different online sessions that we will have for that boot camp. Coach Eric is going to run that. So go check that out. So just wanted to let everybody know that. And let's dive in today. This is a great piggyback off of, like I was saying in the intro, off of the last 2 podcasts that I've done. Last month was definitely a rant and rave session, but I thought that rant and rave session would tie into a beautiful business lesson for a lot of you out there. Same with the previous, a couple months ago, talking about the number 1 success trait of billionaires and the worst, and the real reason price shoppers exist. Here's the reality. Well, so I almost, before I get into that, but I almost named that the number 1 trait, a success trait of billionaires that you'll likely never adopt, because it's crazy to me. Like, I've always been in my entrepreneur journey somebody that goes, okay, so if a billionaire is doing it, where do I sign? It's if these are the traits of how they manage their time and how they run their business and how they motivate their team and how they kick the crap out of everybody else in their quote unquote, respective industries. Why would anybody not do it? Whether it takes some work or not, why wouldn't you sign up for it? And that's why I almost titled it that. But when I started looking at it and realizing the more I'm in this industry, the more I realize every practice is the same, no matter how much they try to convince themselves they're different. Every practice has the same tools. So I wanted to tie in the real reason price shoppers exist and how that is really the industry's fault. Like, you have created the price shoppers because your receptionists speak the same. Your TCs speak the same. You offer the same tools, Invisalign or some other type of clear aligner. You offer braces. It's all the same. There's no value proposition. So what you're left with is somebody that goes, I'm going to spend $5,000 at practice A rather than $7,000 or $8,000 at practice B and C. And of course, that's what you would do as a consumer if you see no additional value proposition to why someone else selling you the same tool is more expensive. And I thought that podcast and the one last month ties beautifully into today, because what I'm going to be talking about today is another success trait of billionaires, and it really reshapes how a lot of you think about hiring practices out there. And inevitably, what the industry has done for so long, as they have, you're sabotaging the talent because of how you hire and how you view the hiring process. And today's not going to be long. I thought today would be a much quicker one that we could dive through, because last month's was, I think last month's was an hour and 20 minutes, something like that. And, I don't like to go that long, but at the same time, I kind of let the topic take me, wherever it's going to take me. And I think today we can make the point pretty quick that is. And what we're going to be talking about today is learning how to hire outside your industry. Just like the number one success trait of billionaires is they search for coaches that are outside of their industry, right? So it's kind of a two-part number one success trait. One, they have a coach, and two, that coach comes from with outside their industry. And if you want to dive more into that, go into a couple podcasts ago. But today, another success trait is how do you go outside your industry to find very unique talent to help you separate yourself from everybody else. Now, there's this common misconception inside healthcare where it's like, well, if Betty doesn't know the clinical, Betty's not qualified. Well, it could not be further from the truth. Now, if you're looking for assistants, obviously they have to be clinically trained, right? That's a whole nother episode, though, I've got a great topic around the clinical assistants in your office and hiring process and the most unique thing about your clinical positions in your office. That's going to dive into something that's going to probably be next season, maybe the season beyond before we do that episode. But today is more around the non-clinical aspects of your practice, your receptionists, your treatment coordinators, things like that. The people that are really involved in your sales process, in your value proposition process. So many practices, so many doctor business owners, so many office managers out there. And speaking of office managers, that's another one. I have seen, and again, shout out Jet Pascal's office manager, Lisa. You have heard me talk about his team on this podcast in the past, but she is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Somebody that does not come from inside the orthodontic profession. Because an office manager, let's just start there. The real job of an office manager, and this will be a podcast in itself too, is redefining what an office manager role actually is. Office managers are so misused inside the healthcare profession. They sit in an office, a lot of them, they're babysitters of the employees. A lot of them are practice management software experts. A lot of them file paperwork. They're basically a glorified admin position. And if you're an OM, you may not like to hear that, but the reality of the situation is what your job is your job is to lead the team, make them better, put them in positions that are difficult so they can improve their skill sets, motivate them, inspire them, set a culture of constant change to where nothing ever gets stagnated. Your job is to shake the hands of the new patients when they walk through the door and the existing patients, thanking them, just like a restaurant manager. No restaurant manager that's successful sits in an office. No, they're on the floor, constantly seeing what the waiters need, constantly being a second hand to help the waiters. The best managers are walking around to the tables, especially the most expensive. If they're a returning table and those people spend a lot of money in the restaurant, what do? They're coming up to the table. That podcast will dive way into that job description. But one of the reasons why it's so great to hire, and one of the reasons why Lisa's so good, is that they went outside the orthodontic industry, the dental profession, if you will, and hired somebody that came with that knowledge already. They viewed the office manager position not as a manager, but as a leader. They viewed all the hospitality, all the things that I'm talking about as part of their job description. Why? Well, because that's what your job description is whenever you come from outside the healthcare industry. Like I believe, if you come from the restaurant industry, imagine hiring an office manager that came from the restaurant industry. Imagine the tangibles, the beautiful tangibles that come with that. Now, are they going to have to learn the healthcare dental ortho space? Of course. But I can tell you from experience that that is significantly easier than teaching them all the other things, which is exactly, we'll tie that in, which is exactly the treatment coordinator and from a receptionist perspective, the exact same thing. See, those two people are in a sales role. You may not, if this is the first podcast you've ever listened to, you may hate me forever for saying that. But the reality of the situation is that you tell me what else you want to call it. People are calling upwards of 5 practices before they decide which to visit. They're visiting upwards of 3 practices before they decide which to buy from. Of course you're in sales. There's no other way to describe it. And if you're a practice that wants to fight that and get aggravated, you're going to be left behind. While others innovate, you're going to stagnate, right? And the new patient group customers out there, shout out to you all, realize and embrace you're in sales. It's just the way it is when you become commoditized because of competition. It's just the way it is. So you can fight it all you want, or you can embrace it. And the quicker you embrace it, the more you can take some of these tips like today and go out and actually execute on them. Give me an example. There's podcasts we've done about this, a lot of courses we have on the site. But give me an example of something your receptionist would need to know in order to convert a new patient onto your schedule and articulate your value proposition and really sell them on why you're unique. Give me a clinical skill set that they would need. And the reality is there isn't one. Now, what they do need is verbiage and presentation skills. They need the right type of personality. They need to understand sales. They need to be taught sales fundamentals. They need to learn how to stay in control of the conversation. They need to understand all the intangibles that come with dual closes. They need to understand psychology so they know what to say, how to say, when to say it. They need to know and be trained on hospitality and customer service. So all those things I just said and more, they need to be trained on by experts in that industry. So that fits in exactly with why would you look for a receptionist that comes from inside your dental, ortho, whatever profession? It doesn't make sense. Now, does it help to know the ortho, dental profession? Of course it does. But those are things that are easily taught along the journey of working inside your office. Way easier than all the non-clinical commercialized skill sets that an employee that answers the phones needs. And the other beauty part of that is if you hire somebody to answer your phones that comes from the sales world. You take my company, RightChat. One of the reasons RightChat is so successful and one of the reasons why people don't leave the company is because the agents that work for RightChat are so ridiculously awesome and so much better than your people. And I'm just going to flat out say this. Your people will never be half as good as the agents with RightChat because of, one, how we hire, right? We're hiring from the hospitality, sales, customer service environment. If they've answered a phone for a healthcare practice, they're automatically disqualified. We don't want them because that comes with all kinds of habits that have to be broken over the course of their existence. Because when we talk and we teach phones, now the RightChat agents are taught through the new patient group phone training. And that phone training does not cover really anything you most likely have thought about while working inside a practice. It's so advanced, that course, it's ridiculous. And it's much easier grasped by people if they come from that world. They can learn about Invisalign. They can learn about braces. They can learn about dental monitoring. They can learn about all the other things that you offer at your practice. But they are going to be so much better in a sales role, which what the new patient phone call is. Those of you listening, and a lot of what I'm talking about today is actually multiple podcasts in itself. And there's going to be one that's going to talk about what I'm about to talk about now. But very simply put, the new patient phone call is like a first date, right? You have to convince that person to call you for a second date, right? And in the healthcare world, the second date is them showing up to your doors. And you've heard me talk about this in previous podcasts a lot. So inevitably, the goal of that new patient phone call, it is not a data collection call. It amazes me how many people teach phone skills in this industry that still teach it as if you're the only practice in the country where you have no competition. It's unbelievable to me. That call has to build the know, like, trust factor, which are 3 keys to success in sales. That's a podcast in itself right there. It's got to build rapport. There has to be edification, value building. And I hate to tell you, a lot of what the consumer values is not what you value. There's a disconnect there. So you've got to understand how to speak the consumer language to put value on what they believe is awesome, not what you believe is awesome. And there's a whole host of skill sets that come with it. And I can tell you, if you are hiring from outside your profession, you're going to be able to find people that come at least with some of those skill sets. And the cool part is they most likely have come from an organization that role plays, because that's not normal, but it's way more normal in businesses outside of the practice environment than it is inside. So whenever you hire a company like a new patient group, some other type of coaching company, your people are more receptive to the role plays because that's what they've been doing in their other job and the other time and when they other part of their career, long story short. So it's not a foreign concept. It's just much easier, long story short. And see, as you go through your hiring journey, you sabotage yourself so much when you only look for people with prior industry experience, like looking for somebody to answer our phones that works in a dental practice as an example. Well, of course you're going to have a harder time finding people, especially now. You know, one of the big topics and one of the reasons I did this today was because the hiring people is still a big problem in the industry. And honestly, it's not just in healthcare. It's a problem almost anywhere. It's just a problem business owners, entrepreneurs, companies have. And when you just exclude so many thousands of people that potentially could see your ad and be hired, you're excluding them by saying, I'm only going inside the dental profession, ortho profession, plastic, whatever it is. This person has to have prior industry experience. I would argue, and if I had my own practice that I started tomorrow, I would fill it with people that don't have prior industry experience. I'd hire an assistant right out of school. Oh, Brian, gosh, I got to train him. Yeah, that's what you do as a business owner. You train. And you try to automate that training as much as possible, which is why we have our office automation platform. It's like you build out all your videos and onboard and automate as much of the headaches from a training perspective as you possibly can. Of course, that's one of the things you do. But training is something that you will always do, and you should embrace it. Because the more you train, the more you beat your quote-unquote, air quote, competition. Because again, they're not going to. So training is just a way of life. So why not bring in people that already have a lot of the skill sets that you're going to have to train them on? Like I said, sales, hospitality, customer service, verbiage, communication, presentation, et cetera, et cetera. Why not start there and work back towards expertise inside your practice? Way easier to do. Way easier to do. And you know what? You're not going to have as hard a time finding people either, because you're going to open your talent pool up to thousands of more people. If you just exclude those people and you only go within your profession, think how many people you're not even giving a chance to. Because remember, all of your people, you're all in hospitality. Doctors, you included. You're in hospitality. So many things that you hear, if you've listened to this podcast for years, so many things that we try to convince, but it's amazing no matter how many times you say it, it's still very, very hard to convince the 99% that it's true. When you're a commodity, you no longer sell whatever service product you have. What you sell is experience. Boom, period, end of story. You know, we do this exercise with the TCs, and I love this because in the beginning, they're like, I don't know. But as you go through some coaching, they really knock it out of the park. The exercise is I want you to convince me to buy treatment, but you're not allowed to talk about teeth. You're not allowed to talk about healthcare. You're not allowed to talk about orthodontics. You're not allowed to bring up one of those things. And I want you to convince me to buy from here. And boy, oh boy, when they get it, sales go through the roof. Why? Because that's what you're selling. You're not selling the tool. Why? Because the other three practices that you go to have the same tool. Or maybe they use a different type of clear aligner than Invisalign, whatever it may be. It's still the same tool. You're selling experience. So if you're hiring people from the hospitality industry that's used to that stuff already, it's such an easy transition. And talking about the TCs the same way. I see it time and time again that the best treatment coordinators inside orthodontics and the people presenting money inside the dental profession, I see it time and time again. They did not come from the office environment. They came and they were hired from the sales and hospitality environment. And for so many of you listening out there, you are the innovators. You know, while other people, you're the innovators while other people are remaining stagnant. This concept, one, is going to be very easy for you to grasp. Two, a lot of you are probably already doing it, and you know how much it's helped. Same thing when you're presenting money to somebody. What clinical skill set do you need to know? Now, does it help? Of course it does, which that's where you give them training on when you hire them. But see, all the other things that they have to have when presenting money, again, knowing the psychology of the consumer, knowing all the consumer psychology mistakes people make when presenting money, knowing cash flow, knowing, again, sales, verbiage, presentation skills. All of those things are a non-practice environment skill set that you just have to bring inside your environment, and you will kick butt. But you will also, and this is arguably even more important, you will lessen the hiring headaches you have because you're going to find more people. Or you're not going to lessen the hiring headaches, you're going to lessen the headache that comes with not being able to find anybody. You've got to open that up. And I tell you, if you keep your eyes and ears open, you will find these people. You could be going to a Chick-fil-A and the guy or girl could just be fantastic. Boom, hand them a card. I have to tell you, a lot of people that aren't in healthcare, they would think it's really cool to work in healthcare. You're at a nice restaurant, waiter's off the charts, boom, hand them a card. Hey, we're looking for a sales role inside our practice. That's exactly what you should call it, by the way. Here's what that comes with. We're really looking. We've been really impressed with your skills tonight. We think you'd be a great fit. We'd love for you to interview for the job. Boom, hand them a card. I have found that business cards are used. People like to give them to potential customers, right? Patients, clients. Where you got to remember is that you've got to have them to give them to people that you want to work for you. And that's why you should never shut down the interview process, ever. Because the second you shut down interviewing, that's when you cost yourself unbelievable talent. And you never find that talent because you shut the interview process down. What I mean by that is you should always have something floating out there. Doesn't mean that you're actually going to hire, but you never know who you're going to come across that you go, I cannot turn this person down. This person is so ridiculous that we're going to create a position inside our office just for this person. And see, you're very unlikely to find that if you stick to inside your profession. And this all goes back to when we did the podcast about the number one success trait of billionaires and the real reason price shoppers exist. And I think we also talked about the real reason no-shows exist on that podcast as well. Is see, if you keep using coaching and consultants from in your industry, you become the same because they come from the practice environment. And you become the same. Then if you hire from within your industry, it's the same way. They make you the same because they've been coached by the same people. And it's just this regurgitation of the same, the blah. See, if you become an organization where you're looking for coaches outside your industry that are experts in all the non-clinical things and know how to apply them to your industry, and you're looking for employees that are experts in non-clinical things but know how to apply it to your industry, my God, your people in your community have no chance. They have absolutely zero chance. You're going to blow them away. But for most of you out there, this is a reshaping of the hiring mindset and understanding, one, you can have access to thousands of more potential candidates for your job if you go outside your industry. Two, when you do that, people are going to come equipped. Now, it doesn't mean that you still don't need to train them on what I'm about to say, but they're going to receive the training better and be able to implement it better than people inside the practice. Because that number two is they come with the non-clinical skill sets that you must have in your team in order to get referrals, get sales, increase revenue, increase profit, be more efficient, increase your hospitality, increase your customer service, the overall experience and ambiance of your place. They are more equipped because they come with at least some of those talents. We're hiring people inside your practice environment. They do not come with those talents. And it's such a huge hole in the boat because not only do they not come with it, then most doctors, most business owners, most office managers either don't train, they just can't wrap their head around why they need training, or they hire someone from within the practice environment that's not qualified to teach sales to any company on the planet. Three, it's going to reduce the amount of investment you have to put into training because they come more trained in the things that you otherwise would have to get them trained in. Four, it's going to grow your business. There are no negatives. And five, the only thing you're going to have to remember is, They're going to need to learn the dental side, the orthodontic side, the whoever type of doctor side. But that stuff can be learned far easier than all the other non-clinical skill sets that I'm talking about today. Go with outside your industry. I love finishing today on this theme about hiring differently, going outside your industry to look for roles that inevitably are sales roles inside your practice. You know, you've got to look at it this way. If you're an organization, forget, just for a second, we'll end on this. For a second, forget that you're an orthodontist, forget that you're a dentist, and say, I'm a business owner, I have a business. What is one of the best routes for me to increase my sales, right? Forget what the sales are. What's the best route? How do I do that? Well, I need a sales team, all right? That's hopefully what you're thinking. You know, I need a team that knows how to sell. We've got to make sure the experience for our patients is unexpected, right? We've got to make sure that when people, the time they call this place, the time they walk through the doors, the time they're in here, everything is an unexpected, amazing experience. Now, see, you haven't talked about what product, service, etc. you sell. Right now, you could sell shirts, you could sell hamburgers, you could sell Invisalign. So if you're starting that off, the reality is the skill sets the people need are exactly the same regardless of those three examples I just gave. They've got to be sales. They've got to know sales. They've got to constantly learn the next innovation around sales on how hospitality and verbiage and presentation. And I know for many of you out there, and if you've been listening to this and you're a client, sales doesn't scare you at all. But if you're first time, you're just trying to get in this, it may scare the crap out of you. But you've got to realize, and you can call it whatever you want to make yourself feel better. But the reality of the situation is it's sales. You have to have the right sales team around you in order to maximize your success. It's just that simple. Every company that offers something to people that have choices needs good salespeople. Forget what you're actually selling. You need good salespeople. You can always teach them about your product. You can always teach them about your service. But a lot of times you can never teach them sales because if they're incapable of implementing it, then you're just going to waste your time and spend more money on training and didn't have to fire and rehire, et cetera, et cetera. Domino effect. Look with outside your industry from coaching. Change your mindset so you're unique. And part of that uniqueness and mindset change and looking outside your industry is reshape your hiring processes and define your sales roles versus your clinical roles. In the sales roles, in your office manager role, you need to go outside your industry to find the absolute best people. Hope everybody enjoyed today. I'm glad these last 3 months, this month obviously included in that, has gone this route, and really hope that your mindset is shifting. Next month, we're going to come back with another great episode. We're going to move away from this outside your industry concept theme, if you will. Start diving into some other really cool stuff. Hope you enjoyed today. Reshape your mindset in the hiring process. Until next month, we'll talk to everybody soon. Bye-bye.